Hello, it is me, Come! And today I wanted to follow up on your previous video by talking about the other major Mech Fight mod out there, Mech Special, also commonly referred to as SP, created by Streetwise. These aren't the only two JMF mods out there, mind you, and I might do a video going over some of the other more minor mods in the future. Whoa, we'll get to you! But they are the two that make the most substantial changes to the way the game plays, and they're also the best ones. This is largely where the similarities end, though. While JMF Chaos can be thought of as what would happen if vanilla JMF was designed by a meth addict who broke into the Nintendo headquarters and the employees were all too scared to do anything about him, Special is more like what would happen if vanilla was designed with genuine competitive balance in mind, as opposed to primarily the single-player mode, and also had significantly more development time. The mod's primary aim, at least when it started out, was to buff the weaker characters to make them more viable, while still retaining what made them unique, and it's also made multiple system mechanic changes and additions since that original goal was established. I said in the previous video that Chaos was my favourite JMF mod, and that's still the case to some extent, but Special is still a genuinely great time, and I've gained a newfound appreciation for it after playing it a lot for this video. Okay, so before I go over how any individual characters were altered, I want to go through all the universal changes made to the game as a whole, because it makes more sense to do it in that order. First of all, since I have to get this out of the way, the name changes. Special makes various changes to the names of characters and their special moves, which are okay. I would be lying if I said I didn't still kinda dislike a lot of them. This is less to do with the quality of the new names themselves and more to do with the fact that when you've been calling this move Crush Back for the past 2 years, having it suddenly be called Back Crush is bound to feel off-putting regardless of the quality of the translation itself. I have given some opinions about these translations in the past, but I actually don't mind most of them looking at them more neutrally now. Even Bumpy, which is one of the more odd choices in this mod, still at least sounds kind of funny. And the fact that this move is now called Head Be Gone is objectively hilarious, and you cannot change my mind about this. This is by far my favorite name change in this mod. I love it, it's great. While I still appreciate the somewhat janky feel of the old translation, this one definitely feels a lot more polished, and it has a very distinct personality to it, which I actually quite enjoyed. Having said this, Streetwise, if you're watching, I doubt you're about to, but please do not rename John. The fact that this game has a character just called John is immensely entertaining to me, and I love it. Don't change him, he needs to stay John. Like, I can't name every name change in this mod off the top of my head, but honestly the only one I can think of that I specifically say I dislike is the line upper becoming linear upper. I don't know, it just doesn't have much of a punch to it as it did before. I don't know how to describe it. Actually, going off script for a second, when I was getting footage just for this video after I made the script, it doesn't look like it's called linear upper anymore. I don't know where I got that from. Now granted, the version I'm playing on here isn't like a public release build, because as you can see, Tiger is truly, he's going. I don't know what he's doing, he's just going, I guess. But if it's not called linear upper anymore, then gaming. Oh wait, fuck! I forgot. I'm an actual just fucking brainlet. Holy shit. I think is line upper is linear upper on Leo instead of Tiger or something. I don't know. I should have put this in the script. Shit. Anyway. Comparing that with the amount of changes I do like, it's honestly not that much of a big deal. Gaian being spelled with an I instead of an E now technically just doesn't change anything about how it's pronounced, but now hopefully there will be less single-digit IQ degenerates calling him Geen, so I approve. And Zack's good specials being changed to Super Punch and Super Kick is simply better. I don't know how else to describe it. Before I move on from name changes entirely, I just want to call attention to the fact that Streetwise mentioned in the Discord at one point that he sincerely believes renaming Buffbok to Bumpy is the most controversial change he made to the game with this mod. My favorite part of that is, like, he's not wrong. The name changes were by far the most controversial compared to anything else this mod did. I'm honestly not sure if this speaks more to the sheer quality of the rest of this mod, or just the extreme pettiness of the average JMF player, but I love it either way. Anyway, moving on from holy shit, did I just write 2 whole paragraphs about name changes? It's time to talk about the other universal changes made in Special. Oddly enough, I actually don't have as much to say about these as the name changes, so I'm gonna speed through all of them right now. First of all, the stages from Vanilla that were originally restricted to 1P War mode, as in the best ones, can now show up in multiplayer. Additionally, a few stages also have night variants now, and the health bars change color to fit the stage you're playing on. Stun characters can no longer be re-stunned with just one attack, which, well, thank fucking god for that. Characters now turn around instantly whenever the enemy is behind them, unless you're blocking, preventing infinite walking and apparently removing a lot of ground to cross-ups. Your character's head now has a hurt box, which it apparently didn't before. There's also a gut system comparable to something like Guilty Gear, where you take less damage the less health you have. This makes rounds longer, as well as making the game feel a bit more tense, which I quite like. Apparently this was in the original game too, but it was barely noticeable compared to how it is in Special. Attacks that don't deal any block stun also don't exist anymore, which, yay, Senju's good now. Aerial cross-ups can be blocked now, but you'll need to switch to holding the correct direction away from your opponent in order to block them right. Now, watch in horror as I force the average JMF fan to block cross-ups like they would in a normal fighting game. I personally really like this change. It adds extra depth to a few characters' offense by making block mix-ups, well, a thing that exists without really having any drawbacks. It means less infinites, which aren't something I've been Stockholmed into liking about vanilla JMF yet, so that's always a good thing in my opinion. Lastly, by pressing left or right once you've partially selected your character, you can change their color palette to one of 10 possible options. Right now on the screen you can see some of my personal favorite, and oh fuck, it's the color pink, my worst nightmare. Not to mention, a lot of these palettes were actually suggestions submitted by JMF server members at the time the palette update was being worked on, which I personally think is really cool, even if it does kinda make me wish I hadn't been too lazy to submit a few myself. Now for the character changes, and I'm gonna be honest, I had a pretty hard time writing this part of the script. Many of the changes here are to do with subtle differences in frame data and knockback levels, and I am not the type of person who can just look at some patch notes, see this, and immediately understand how it'll affect a character's gameplay, so writing about a lot of these was hard. That being said, what I can say is that pretty much everyone in this game feels so much better to play as than they ever did in vanilla. I couldn't for the life of me tell you what makes Star feel so much better and more fun here than in vanilla, aside from the changed jump height and gravity level, but he does feel significantly better in Special, and the same sentiment applies to varying extents to every character in the game. That being said, there are a lot of smaller changes I'd like to call attention to briefly though, so let's just speed through them now. Super Zack's aerial Zack kick now always falls faster to the ground regardless of when the button is pressed, which felt really strange to get used to at first, but I actually quite like it now. It makes him feel faster and more offensive. Dachon's jump punch has now been altered to be this instead. Scaffold can now use his roll move one extra time if he hits the opponent with it. Giganto is now really scary. Zack gets all of this, I don't know how to interpret this. Bok Bok also gets a bunch of stuff, which I also wasn't sure how to interpret. So here's what the best Bok Bok in the world had to say about him. And now for the three characters I actually have a good deal to say about. Whoa, no way, it's three again, just like the last video. And in my opinion, these three are where this mod shines the brightest. First of all, most normal of the three, Geo. His changes aren't as major as the other two, but he still has a lot going on, and in my opinion he's more fun here than he's ever been anywhere else. First of all of his normals have been improved, being given increased damage and in a few cases better range, and so has Geo Crush, having its damage per hit upped from 8 to 10 and being able to hit much more consistently than before. And another welcome change, his projectile is actually usable now, having been sped up by full 11 frames, meaning you can actually do stuff with it now, instead of just dying whenever you try to throw it out. It also causes a knockdown on hit, meaning that once you do get it out, the reward is much greater than before. Lastly, Jetstorm, now renamed to Jetstream, now has a hitbox on the head instead of just being on only the feet for some reason, and it has multiple different speeds which can be accessed by holding the forward or back buttons while you do the input. This is not something I have a whole lot to say about, it's just generally really cool and I like it a lot. Also, I'm pretty sure they fixed that weird bug from vanilla where the input for Jetstorm just didn't work half the time and it was kind of just bad and unreliable, so that's nice. So overall, yeah, Geo's been greatly improved compared to how he was in vanilla. I always thought he was a really cool character in theory who just happened to end up with a really disappointing execution on a lot of his ideas. So seeing him fully fleshed out here is great. Nothing fundamentally about him has actually changed aside from Jetstream's 3 speeds, he just functions as he actually should now. And turns out Geo, but functioning as he actually should, is really fun to play as. Next up is Skater, who... Skater is my favorite thing in this mod. He has less actual changes than Geo, but the ones he does have make him go from possibly one of the worst characters in any fighting game ever made to a genuinely fun rushdown character who's extremely satisfying to play as. First of all, the most notable change. He has a throw now. Instead of this shitty old somersault move, which wasn't even spelled right, he can now do this, which bestows upon him the prestigious status of being a fighting game character that doesn't lose to the down button. But it's this next change that makes him go from good to great, that's right. Spin Upper, actually good now. Let's go. Woohoo. Spin Upper on Vanilla Skater was quite possibly the worst move in the game, but now it's been significantly improved and so much more satisfying to use as a result. The changes that have been made to it are quite significant, but basically every part of this move is much faster now, meaning that it's both possible to actually hit people with this, as well as not just be a sitting duck if it doesn't land. But yeah, skater fun now. He goes to look at my boy go, so precious. And lastly, the character who's been changed most in this mod, John. Most obviously, he's gotten a completely new look, now looking like an actual unique character instead of just being Bok Bok with some funny head orbs. The sound effect on his throw has also been changed to boop beep boop. Fuck. The sound effect on his throw has also been changed to this. I am rather fond of this noise. Additionally, the input for spin jumping has also been made significantly easier to perform, now meaning you now no longer have to spend multiple hours in practice mode trying to get the perfect input for one possible action during a special that exists in a game made to be more approachable to beginners and not less. His normals have also all been generally improved. These changes alone would already be somewhat significant, but on top of all this, he also has an entire new special, replacing his old, comically bad projectile. His new move is called John Wave, but that's where the similarities between the two moves end. Now he his funny head orbs forwards for a bit and then brings them back. This move is, at least in my experience, primarily a spacing and punishing tool, even if throwing it out in neutral is a horrendous idea, but it also doubles as a pretty great Oki tool. The important thing to know about this move is that it hits multiple times, meaning that if you space it right, it can combo into itself, both on block and on hit, leading to some pretty good chip damage on Oki that can't be frame-perfect throw reversaled out of, as well as being really funny to hit jumping opponents with. Overall, John, like everyone else in Special, has been vastly improved compared to his vanilla counterpart, and it's just so much more fun as a result. So then, that's everything I have to say about this mod. If you enjoy vanilla JMF, I would absolutely recommend you give Special a look, especially given how many characters are just so much more fun here in comparison to vanilla. Typically this is the part where I mention something I don't like about the mod that you might want to be aware of going in, but other than potentially controversial name changes, which are fairly easy to just ignore, I honestly can't think of anything bad to say about it. I guess if you liked how riddled with infinites vanilla JMF was, including the amount of moves that could just obliterate low stun characters in one hit, or you were just a huge fan of how Bok Bok and John's spin jumps were harder to input than the average King of Fighters super, this might not appeal to you as much as vanilla, but if you're a normal and sane human being who likes Joy Mech Fight, I really can't see any reason to dislike this mod. So yeah, that's it for this video. What are you doing still watching? Go play JMF Special already.